Extremophiles. What's an extremophile? Extremophiles are organisms that live in very extreme environments. They have subclasses like hypothermophile, which grow the best at degrees over 80 degrees Celsius, or the inverse being the psychrophiles, organisms that grow optimally in 15 degrees Celsius or less. But there are also more extreme versions, like acidophiles. They grow best in very acidic water. Basic pH is considered between 6.5 and 7.5 pH, which is the water we drink. Acidophiles love water lower, near, right around 3 pH, which is very acidic. The inverse, alkaphiles, they love basic environments like pH around 10. Think of bleach. Bleach has a very high pH, and which is what these organisms love. There are also extremophiles, which don't require water to grow. They can grow with very little water, going years without drinking. What's a good example of a extremophile? Well, the best example that almost everybody can recognize is the tardigrade, also known as the water bear for its simplicity. Tardigrades are very small and they live in very extreme environments. They can survive between negative 253 Celsius and 151 Celsius. They can survive about 5,000 grays of radiation, which, for context, 5 grays is what it takes to kill a human. They survive the vacuum of space. They were sent up into a space station for 3 days and then brought back, and they were all still fine, living perfectly fine. Nothing happened to them. They can also exist in pressure 6,000 times more than atmospheric pressure at sea level. Now, how do we compare? The maximum temperature we can exceed is about 42.3 degrees Celsius. After that, we don't live long. The minimum temperature humans can survive is about negative 40 degrees Celsius with no gear. Obviously, it changes both of those when you have the proper gear, but just looking at a basic level, that's about the temperatures you can survive. We can only survive about 5 grays, as I said, and we can only survive about 100 atmospheric pressure. That's if you're not breathing. If you start breathing, the number gets lowered down to around 50 or so. How do they do it? Tardigrades are amazing creatures with very complex systems to keep them alive, even with them being so small and considered very simple. They are only like that in a special state called cryptobiosis. That's when they're called tons in the state, and they reduce their metabolism by 99.99%. Metabolism is the rate at which your body absorbs energy. So you can't do much when you're reduced that little metabolism, but what you can do is survive. You won't be able to move much or anything else, but you will live in extreme circumstances. Why is this important? This is important because it can show us magnitude of things, a potential origin of life. Primordial Earth, very harsh environment. This could potentially be an origin of life. Or it could prove that we came from a far off planet like Mars. An asteroid knocked a bunch of extremophiles, potentially tardigrades, onto Earth and evolved from there. It would likely be the last remaining organism on Earth. If there was a huge catabolism, then the only things that would be able to survive are extremophiles living in the extreme conditions of the remaining Earth. They would eventually, bring everything back, but it would take a long time, and extremophiles also show us the limit of what life can be. because until its extremophiles were discovered, humans were thought to, or life was thought to only be so great, and then we were shown that it can survive much harsher environments. And that's why tardigrades and extremophiles as a whole are so interesting and so great.